Are you ready to take your message, your business, and your life to the next level?
Want to learn from someone with more than a decade of experience, training tens of thousands of people from all around the world?
Hi, Cliff. This is Pauline from Auckland, New Zealand.
John from Calgary, Alberta.
Amy Porterfield.
Michael Hyatt.
Dan here from Dunedin, New Zealand.
Ray Edwards. Mark Mason. Mike Stelzner.
Pat from Smart Passive Income.
It's Darren from Melbourne, Australia.
Now is the time to live the life of your dreams and do the work you feel most called to do in the world.
Welcome to the Cliff Ravenscraft Show.
Here's your host, Cliff Ravenscraft.
Well, welcome back, my friend. I have a question for you. Have you been listening to this show for so long that when you hear that intro, you don't even really hear the words that are being spoken? Do you truly, authentically believe that right now is the time to live the life of your dreams and do the work you feel most called to do in this world? Are you willing to take action and go after that life, whatever it may take to get there? That is what we are going to talk about today. And in fact, I will tell you that sometimes getting what you want is simply right on the other side of maybe asking someone for help. The title of today's episode is You Will Not Get What You Do Not Ask For in Life. Or I might just put, You Will Not Get What You Don't Ask For. Anyway, I want to share with you today a 5-minute Voxer message that came in from Joshua Caldwell. Now, here's the thing. You might be thinking, well, why would I want to hear a 5-minute, very low quality audio file of listener feedback from some guy I've never heard of before? Well, it has a lot to do with the fact that this entire 5-minute conversation is pretty much going to sound exactly like some of the things that are going through your mind. See if I'm not right about this as I click play on this file for you right now.
Hello, Mr. Cliff Ravenscraft. My name is Joshua Caldwell, and I just got finished listening to episode 617 of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show, and that's how I found out about this Voxer situation. So I figured, what the heck, what's it going to hurt? You know, I had a dream to try to get in contact with you one day, and this was there, so I figured I would definitely try. I'm not quite sure if you're still accepting these or you're still capable of answering emails and Voxers, but here goes. You said the stipulation to sending the Voxer was, what is the biggest dream that you have that excites you or scares you the most? And so I've just kind of been here thinking about that. I mean, for the last several days. You know, actually, I'm sorry. I apologize. Let me back up. I actually want to just give you utter gratitude for the content that you make available through your podcasts and through YouTube and the other avenues that are free. I have been binge listening to your podcast for the last 2 weeks, and I found you a year ago as I was researching wanting to start my own podcast, which hasn't happened yet. But because you were the podcast answer man, when I started searching, I found the YouTube channel and started to research how to do that. That's how I found you. So for the last year, I'm on your emailing list, and your encouragement is extraordinary. And I've just been kind of sitting on the bleachers listening. So I just wanted to say thank you. Very, very much thank you right from the beginning. Number two, on to the question, what is the biggest dream that you have that excites you or scares you the most? And so I've been kind of soul searching and wanting to distill it down. And there's so many facets to this, but the more superficial pressing at hand, apart from, you know, I want to supply for my wife and children and love them well, be a great dad, be a great husband, including living the life that I was created to live. But I have had for the last 2 years a dream, a vision of starting my own YouTube channel, documenting things that I go through, a weight loss program, losing weight, getting that under control, going on adventures, hunting, fishing, things of that nature, with my children, with my wife, with family and friends. Really any life that I do that is adventurous, that propels me forward for the sole purpose, literally the specific purpose, of encouraging other people to get off our asses and go live life and stop just consuming and start participating. And I've just been consuming. And so I have a dream to literally start filming and to make it creative and all that sort of thing. But whatever journey I'm going to start right now, start filming it, all the facets of it. I have other things, including I want to start a collaboration YouTube channel where I write music with people. And then I do still want to start a podcast where I have candid conversations with people. But really, I want to start by doing a YouTube channel that documents moving forward from my life, wherever I am, where I started, to encourage other people to live life, love their family, love their community, and to live fully and richly instead of being dissatisfied, to show that you can get out there and you can do adventure. You don't have to be rich or wealthy to live an adventurous lifestyle, and life is an adventure itself. That's as clear as I can make it at the moment without really fleshing it out on paper or any of those other things. But I really appreciate that you make yourself available in this way. It's a bit extraordinary to me. I don't typically get starstruck, but as I'm starting to begin this journey and kind of leap into what my own limiting beliefs are and how to best honor my wife and my children, I've got two people that I've been carefully considering reaching out to, not knowing what will happen. You are one, and my wife's uncle is going to be another one. His name is Lee Domang. He's legacy pastor of a church in Alabama, and he's a businessman, and I look at him also, and I see his relationship with his children and his wife, and I think, man, I want a life of integrity in that way. So these will be the two people that I start to reach out to instead of sitting around waiting for something to happen. I've got a lot of other dreams and aspirations behind that, or back that up, or vision, or whatever you want to call it, reasons behind it. But that's kind of the big pressing thing on my forefront of my mind right now. So if you can get back to me, that'd be fantastic. If you can't, I understand. Not a problem. I know you're a busy man. And I just want to once again say thank you so much. Be blessed in all your endeavors, and I hope to hear from you. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Joshua, for sending me that Voxer message. I got to tell you, it made my day to hear your voice for 5 minutes and 7 seconds. Now, for the rest of this episode, I'm going to speak specifically to Joshua. This is a custom podcast episode of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show just for Joshua. I asked him for permission to play that audio file in the show and respond to him with whatever thoughts might come to my mind. I have lots of thoughts that have been going through my mind ever since this came in a few days ago. But I asked him for permission because I felt like this was a message that so many people in this community need to hear. So while I'm about ready to only speak to Joshua, I want you to listen for anything that might resonate with you and where you are today. So with that being said, Joshua, thank you first and foremost for your message. Thank you for your heart, and thank you for having the courage to reach out. By the way, Joshua, I can't begin to tell you the number of people who listened to episode 617 of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show, and they absolutely still to this day have never taken action on my invitation to contact me because they simply don't feel worthy of my time, effort, energy, or attention. And I know that because, well, I've heard from several folks who said, hey, Cliff, I'm finally reaching out to you. I've been thinking about this for months now, and I just now had the courage to do this because, well, I figure what the heck. And that's exactly what you're saying is I figure what the heck. But I love the fact that you just listened to episode 617. By the way, thank you for a 2-week binge of content, man. That's incredible. But anyway, I congratulate you on having the courage to have the courage. I love the fact that you talked about, man, I've had a dream of reaching out and contacting you one day. See, I remember that. I remember that distinctly in my own life. I once had a dream of one day having contact with a guy named Dan Miller, a man whose content had completely radically shifted the way that I think and the way that I see the world, which when you radically shift the way that you see the world, you'll never be able to go back to see the world from your old perspective, and therefore your life will be radically, profoundly changed forever. And that's what happened for me when I read Dan Miller's book, 48 Days to the Work You Love, when I began to listen to his podcast every single week. And boy, howdy, was I starstruck the very first time that I actually had the opportunity to speak to him at great length. And how did that happen? I asked for it. I dared to dream about meeting him. And I put out a request, or to put out a message to folks in a podcast episode that I created back in, I don't know if it was, I think it might have been 2010, 2000. Actually, I think it was 2009. Now that I think about it, it was definitely 2009. Anyway, I put out there, I said, guys, it's my dream to do this. I want to talk to Dan Miller and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know how this is going to happen, but I am going to make it happen. That is something I'm absolutely certain of. And well, within an hour of publishing that podcast episode, somebody said, Cliff, I can connect him with you. And the very next week, he was a guest on my podcast. You can check that out at mindsetanswerman.com/Dan Miller. And then after that call, he says, Cliff, can we have a one-on-one coaching session? Can I hire you as my coach? We had a call a week after that. And then that weekend, I was in his home in Franklin, Tennessee, just south of Nashville, Tennessee, staying in his guest room, going out to dinner, seeing a show in Nashville, and then spending the entire next day setting up a podcast studio for the man. Why? Because just like you, Joshua, I figured, what the heck? I had a dream of getting in touch with the guy, and I figured, well, I'll definitely give it a try, right? And I love that you also had the courage. So congratulations on having the courage to ask. And this reminds me of an interview from 1994 where Steve Jobs was interviewed about the success that he had. You know, all of the things that set him up for the success that he had with Apple. And I guess I don't know the question that happened before this, but it's something along the lines of, well, you know, maybe not everybody has the benefit of all of the experiences that you have had. And, you know, and here's what Steve Jobs said in response. At least this is what he said for sure. Here's this audio clip. Listen to it.
I've actually always found something to be very true, which is most people don't get those experiences because they never ask. I've never found anybody that didn't want to help me if I asked them for help. I always call them up. I called up, this will date me, but I called up Bill Hewlett when I was 12 years old, and he lived in Palo Alto. His number was still in the phone book. And he answered the phone himself. He said, yes? He said, hi, I'm Steve Jobs. I'm 12 years old. I'm a student in high school, and I want to build a frequency counter. And I was wondering if you had any spare parts I could have. And he laughed, and he gave me the spare parts to build this frequency counter, and he gave me a job that summer in Hewlett-Packard, working on the assembly line, putting nuts and bolts together on frequency counters. He got me a job in the place that built them. And I was in heaven. And I've never found anyone who said no or hung up the phone when I called. I just asked. And when people ask me, I try to be as responsive, you know, to pay that debt of gratitude back. Most people never pick up the phone and call. Most people never ask. And that's what separates sometimes the people that do things from the people that just dream about them. You gotta act. And you've got to be willing to fail. You've got to be willing to crash and burn, you know, with people on the phone, with starting a company, with whatever. If you're afraid of failing, you won't get very far.
I got to tell you, I love the philosophy of Steve Jobs. I know there's a lot of criticism about his employer/employee relationship, work ethic, and all that other stuff, but there's so much about his philosophy of life that resonates with me at a deep level, and what he says here is so profound. Most people don't get those experiences because they never ask. Most people never pick up the phone and call. Most people never ask. And that's what sometimes separates the people who do things and the people who just dream about them. You've got to act. And that's exactly what you did, Joshua. You acted upon a dream. You were willing to be rejected. You were willing to send me a 5-minute Voxer message and potentially hear nothing in return. You were not afraid of failing. If you're afraid of failing, you won't get far. That's what Steve Jobs says. This also reminds me of a scripture from the Bible. And I think this is in James 4:2. He said something like, you desire, but you do not have. You covet, but you cannot get what you want. You do not have because you do not ask God. That's it. You do not there is a one-step formula for getting any goal in life. Seriously, I don't know if you know this. It's, a lot of people have I have I think an 11-step formula for how to achieve any goal. I think Tony Robbins has his 4-step formula called the total success. Anyway, he has his ultimate success formula is what it's called, the 4-step formula for getting anything you want. Well, the Bible actually has a 1-step formula for getting anything you want in life. Here it is. Ready? Step number 1. Ask. That's it. Step number 1, ask. And the second, the following words after that, and you shall receive. Knock and the door will be opened to you. I mean, come on. It is so simple to ask, but it takes courage. And yes, here's one thing I will say. Steve Jobs in that quote, he says, I've never found anyone who didn't want to help me if I asked them for help. I'm going to tell you the reality of life today. It's very likely that you're going to get some no's to your request for help. But that's why he followed up. He did say, so you've got to be willing to fail. You got to be willing to crash and burn on the phone. You got to be willing to be rejected. You got to be willing to accept somebody's no. I'm sorry, I can't come down right now. There's great work that I'm doing over here. That's what Nehemiah once said to some folks who asked him for some time, over a meal. The thing is sometimes it's necessary for some of us to say no. Due to the number of requests that I get for help on a weekly basis, I can tell you right now, it's impossible for me to say yes to everyone. But Joshua, what I've done for you already on Voxer and what I've done for a number of other people on Voxer is I have intentionally done for some what I wish I could do for everyone. And Joshua, what I am doing for you, I wish I could do it for everyone. I can't. But do you know who I sometimes will discern this is the person I'm going to say yes to? There's a number of factors that go into it. But one of them is you had the courage to ask. Now, there's so much about what you said and how you said it and how you shared in your audio feedback that made you one of the ones that I did for, which I wish I could do for everyone. I'm not going to go into all the detail about that, but one thing I can say is your calling in life resonates with me. Your immediately jumping straight into, let me tell you about my dream and what I want and how I'd love to be inspired by you and get your advice and your feedback. But I love how you just paused for a moment and said, whoa, let me back up this train. First, I want to start out by thanking you. And I love the fact that you also included in there, listen, I understand you may be too busy at this point to reach out and respond to everybody. I may have missed my opportunity, and if you don't ever respond to me, I still have a great amount. There's a lot of things that you said, and the way that you said it, and the way that you show up in the world, Joshua, that made me say, I want to find a way to say yes to this guy. In the same way that I wish I could say yes to everyone who reached out to me this week, I'm going to say yes to Joshua. And so congratulations on having the courage to ask. And for you who is not Joshua listening to this podcast, I want to encourage you to ask. Go back and listen to episode 617 of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show, even if you listened to it before. If you have listened to episode 617 of this podcast and have not reached out to me on Voxer, well, first of all, you won't know how to reach out to me on Voxer unless you go back and listen to that episode. And I'm not going to tell you here, because for you to be able to reach out to me on Voxer, you also need to hear that podcast episode. And the stipulation is that you must also share with me, what is the biggest dream that you are currently pursuing that excites you or scares you the most? By the way, if you have listened to 617 and have not reached out to me on Voxer, go back and listen to it again. And yes, reach out to me on Voxer. I still check it every single day. And for those of you who have never heard of episode 617, I mean, where are we at right now? Episode 632? So it's back in the feed a little bit. I encourage you to go back. Even if you don't worry about listening to all the episodes in between, finish listening to this episode. If you like what you hear here, go back and listen to episode 617 and then reach out to me, just like Joshua did. And who knows, I may be able to say yes to you, but I also may actually not be able to say yes. You have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to crash and burn in a Voxer request, but you will not get what you do not ask for. I promise you that. All right. Moving on. Let's see here. The next thing I want to point out is for you, Joshua. You said here, because you were the podcast answer man, I found your content on YouTube and I started to research how to do that. That's how I found you. And let's see here. And for the past year, I've been on your email list and your encouragement is extraordinary. And I've just been kind of sitting on the bleachers listening. So I wanted to say thank you right from the beginning. So first of all, Joshua, I want to point out to you, it's been years since I've produced any content that has anything to do with creating a podcast. However, that's exactly how you found me. You found me as the result of doing a search for content that I did back in the day when I felt led to create that type of content. And here's what I want to say about that. Many people, Joshua, don't create content because they're afraid of painting themselves into a corner. They're afraid of putting themselves into a box that they can't get out of. They're like, I'm just not sure this is exactly what I want to do with the rest of my life. Some people say those exact words. Some people don't necessarily say those exact words, but they subconsciously are afraid to take action, start creating something, because that's at the heart what's going on subconsciously in their mind. They're afraid they're going to start something they can't get out of, and if they are going to wait to act until they know exactly how all of the dots are going to connect moving forward. And here's the thing. The dots never connect moving forward. It's only until you get to the other side of the journey, until you look backwards and see how the dots connected and worked out for your good. If you don't know what I'm talking about, if you have not listened to episode 631 of this show, go back and listen to the episode right before this, episode 631, and hear about connecting the dots. All right, here's what I want to tell you. I discovered and fell in love with podcasting in 2005. Over the next 2 years, I created several different podcast shows and produced hundreds of hours of podcast episodes. I had a guaranteed professional path that had been paved out for me. My grandfather started his own independent insurance agency in 1937. My dad took over that insurance agency from his dad, and I worked in that same family-owned insurance agency for 12 years. The first 12 years of my marriage, I worked in my mom and dad's family-owned insurance agency, and I was next in line to take over the business. There is nobody that had, there are very few people who had guaranteed job security like I did. However, in 2008, which I don't know if you know this, but there was all sorts of predictions about an economic collapse in 2008, a recession in 2008, and guess what? The predictions were right. However, my heart was calling me to go in a different direction. I felt called to go out into the world and pave my own path forward. I felt that there was a different life that I was meant to live. I wasn't meant to be an insurance agent. I wasn't meant to be an owner of my own insurance agency. That was my grandfather's dream. That was my father's dream. It was not my dream. And in spite of what other people might have thought about my decision to give up the safety and security of my already successful career, I didn't allow myself to be held back by the fear of what other people might be thinking. And of course, this reminds me of another quote from the 2005 Stanford commencement address by Steve Jobs. I'm going to play for you this 26-second audio clip.
Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary.
Joshua, that is what I heard in your message. Inside your heart and your intuition, they're already telling you what you want to become. Go back and listen to that 5-minute Voxer message you sent me. It's clear your heart and your intuition, they're leading you. They're telling you what you truly want to become in life. Everything else is literally going to be secondary to what you said your dream is, your heart is. I promise you that. See, I followed my heart and my intuition, and I became the podcast answer man. I created my own career path as the podcast coach and consultant, and I did it for over a decade until I decided I didn't ever want to do that ever again. But during that process, I created thousands of hours of content, podcast, video, email newsletter content, blog posts. And also, during that decade, I am responsible for helping over 40,000 people in the successful launch of their own audio podcasts. However, today, I don't do anything related to teaching anyone how to podcast. Now, with that being said, I have some mastermind members and some one-on-one coaching clients that hire me for much more than it's all about life transformation and living the lives for which they were created to live, and business mentorship and just mindset coaching and stuff like that. However, if podcasting is a part of that journey, do I tap into my experience and expertise in that area to help them out? Absolutely. I'm currently working with a couple people in my mastermind group on their launch of their podcast. Now, with that being said, I just don't allow anybody to hire me directly solely for the purpose of that technical stuff anymore. However, that's what I did. That content that I created it because at the time I felt led to create that content. You see, it didn't paint me into a corner that I couldn't get out of. I've been out of that corner for over 2 years now. But I'm thankful that I spent the time creating the content that I felt led to create. And by the way, it's not that I did it all perfectly. There's tons of content that's out there that's quite embarrassing with my standard of quality that I have today. But I still created it. And I have no idea what specific piece of content you landed on a year ago when you started searching for podcast-related information. It could have been something I did in 2006 or 2007. I have no idea. But the thing is it didn't keep you from finding me and then binge listening for 2 full weeks my most recent content that has nothing to do with launching a podcast, but has everything to do with what my true calling in this world is, which is to help people just like you, Joshua, break free from anything that's holding you back from pursuing the life for which you were created to live. See, it all works. I can look back and see how all of the dots connected to bring you and I into this relationship today. I could have never predicted that ahead of time. But here we are. Here you and I are, Joshua. And I'm very much looking forward to our 90-minute coaching experience that you have scheduled with me on February. I think it's February 5th or 6th or whatever. It's in my calendar. Don't worry. It's there. It's just off the top of my head. I can't remember exactly when it is. And for those of you who are listening and not speaking to Joshua, I want to let you know I am doing for Joshua something that I just can't do for everyone. But I felt led to offer Joshua a complimentary experience of my coaching. And I can tell you my coaching today is not inexpensive. But I'm looking forward to this. And there's something in my heart that said, yeah, Joshua's one that I want you to reach out to. I felt God saying, hey, yes. And I've since learned subsequently through some follow-up Voxer message that he and his wife have been praying about this whole scenario well before I even responded. And there are sometimes when there is just a divine connection. And so I feel like, Joshua, I'm now speaking back to you again. I feel like this is one of those. And so I'm looking forward to whatever comes out of our connection in February, the first week in February. All right, so here's what I want to say to Joshua. Joshua, I want to tell you, follow your heart and intuition. Create any content that you feel led to create in the moment. Publish that content. You have no idea how much that content will get results for you. It may be years before somebody comes along and does a search for something that lands them on that piece of content, and you may have moved on to 10 or 15 other different things in life since then. It doesn't matter. Create the content. If you feel inspired and you feel led, and there is no doubt by the sound of your voice in that Voxer message, you are led. You are called. It's not something you want to do. I'm going to tell you, Joshua, it's something you must do. I love the fact that you said it's not just my dream, but you said it's a vision I have. And in last week's episode 631, I talked about without vision, you will die. So you have to follow that vision. Follow your heart, follow your intuition. All right. So I asked anybody who reaches out to me on Voxer as a result of episode 617 of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show, I said, if you're going to reach out to me, you have to tell me what is the dream that you're currently following or pursuing or thinking about that excites you and or scares you the most. And I love, Joshua, what you said. You said, listen, on the surface, of course, I want to provide for the needs of my wife and children. I want to love them well and be a great husband and dad and living the life for which I was created to live. And of course, I think we all want that, assuming that we have a wife and children. We want to be that, right? But then you said this, Joshua. You said, but for the past 2 years, I have had a dream, a vision of starting my own YouTube channel, documenting things that I go through, whether it be a weight loss journey, going on adventures like hunting and fishing with my wife and children, doing amazing adventures with random family and friends, really any life that I do that is adventurous and that propels me forward. I got to tell you, Joshua, this is exactly how I started. I just started creating content. I just started telling people, documenting my life. And let me just tell you, you may get some people who are going to judge you for that. In fact, if you haven't done so ever before, go into the Apple podcast directory and look up the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. And then look at some of the 1-star reviews and look at the people who complain and argue and just are really upset about the fact that I talk a lot about myself and my own journey, my own failures, my own successes, my own dreams, my own goals. There's a lot of people who don't like people talking about going after the next level. and talking about themselves. It sounds so egotistical and blah, blah, blah. You know what? You have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to deal with all of that stuff. But you said for the past 2 years, you haven't been able to shake this dream. You won't be able to get rid of this vision. It will not go away. Joshua, I'm going to tell you right now, you have to start now. Start this week. Create the YouTube channel. Don't worry about the name of it. Don't worry about what the content is. Just start creating that content. Sure, make it as creative as you want, but whatever you do, don't wait 2 more years. Don't wait another year. Don't wait another month. Don't wait another week. This week, publish something on YouTube. In fact, you and I are going to be talking for 90 minutes, and I hope that before our call, you will have already sent me or emailed me a link to your first video on YouTube. If you've already created a little bit of content and you haven't done so in a while, because maybe you did dabble with this over the past 2 years, I don't know. You didn't say, but I want something new. I want a link to a piece of content that you have published on YouTube, documenting something about your journey of where you are and where you're going in life on YouTube. Please do that. I love the fact that you said, listen, the content that I feel inspired, led, called to do is for the sole specific purpose of encouraging other people to get off their butts and go live life. I love that. Stop consuming and start participating. You know what? I love the fact that you actually said it better than what I just accidentally said. It's not about stop consuming and start participating. Stop just consuming is what Joshua said. Stop only consuming. Joshua, it's very important that you continue to consume. Why? Because I still need you to binge listen to my content, obviously, because this is all about me, right? No, but that's where we get inspired. That's where, gosh, I don't know that I'd want to continue to create content if I didn't continue to consume content from Father Roderick Von Hogan on a weekly basis, or Leo Laporte, or Ray Edwards, or Chris Pavone, or a handful of other people that I consume their content consistently. Oh, and by the way, since you're really into YouTube, for me, the YouTube content that I love is, well, again, Father Roderick Von Hogan. I love Casey Neistat's content. Who else do I follow on YouTube? There's a girl, her name is Erin. She is in Scotland, and her YouTube channel is Beauty Creep. Go look it up. You'll see. But there's so many people that I love just watching their journey, the things that they're documenting about their life. I love that. For people who do stuff for the sole purpose of encouraging other people to go out and live life. I love that. You said, Joshua, that you've just been consuming, but you have a dream to start filming. So here's what I'm going to tell you. Start filming now. And make it creative. Whatever your journey is, whatever you're dealing with today, create something about it. You said that you've had other things that you're considering, the potential collaborative YouTube channel with writing music with other people, starting a podcast with candid conversations. That stuff can come down the road, but it's clear from what you said, your heart is to start filming with the purpose to encourage people to get into life, living life. People need hope. People need encouragement. You said, I really want to start by doing a YouTube channel that documents moving my life in my life wherever I am, when I started. Well, start today wherever you are. You said you want to encourage people to live life, to love their family, to love their community, to live fully and richly instead of being dissatisfied. Joshua, I'm going to say something to you. There are people out there who are so dissatisfied with life. They are so discouraged in life that they're thinking about throwing in the towel. And some of those people, if you start filming and start publishing, some of those people will be reached by you, and your voice, only your voice, will unlock them from the mindset that they currently have, and it could save their lives. I have 3 handwritten letters here in my office from people who have told me that because of the content that I've created over the years, they've made the decision to not take their own life. I have no doubt in my mind, based upon our engagement on Voxer so far, you have a future where you will also have similarly handwritten letters. I can assure you of that. I love the fact that you said that you want to do this to show that you can get out there and you can have adventure. You don't have to be rich or wealthy to have the adventurous lifestyle. And by that statement, it would make me assume by the fact that you threw that in there and you're documenting your journey from where you're starting. Certainly, I love the fact that you're going to, it says to me that maybe you're not currently in a position where you're rich or wealthy, although I may push you on that belief system. I believe anybody who's listening to my voice right now is indeed very rich and extremely, wildly wealthy. Joshua, I'm going to stop talking to you for just a moment, and I'm going to speak to you, the person who's listening, who's saying, okay, Cliff, you had me until you said that. You have no idea what I'm going through. You have no idea the financial troubles that I'm in. I've lost my job. I've been out of work for 6 months, 18 months, 3 years. I am massively, deeply in debt, blah, 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 blah. Let me tell you something. That may be the case. But if you're hearing my voice, you had some sort of access to the internet. You have some sort of access to some kind of electronic device that allows you to listen to entertaining content. You have the ability and the freedom and the flexibility of time to tune into this podcast. You have so many things going for you. Chances are you're able, if you're hearing my voice, then you have 2 ears. You actually have hearing. You probably have eyesight. You probably have the use of both of your hands and your feet. There are many people out there, I promise you, who wish they were as rich and wealthy as you are. And richness and wealth does not only have to do with money, but even though you may be in massive debt and have no income right now, still when it comes to financial wealth, you're still richer and wealthier than a majority of people in this world because of what's lying at your feet. If you had a different perspective and a different view of the world to see how much manna God has placed at your foot every single day. All right? So, Joshua, okay, I'm back to you now. Let me tell you something. People need to hear your message. They need to understand that no matter where you are right now, whatever your financial situation is today, that you too can live life fully. Your life can be full of adventure. That life is an adventure, as you said. And your content, what you feel called to do, is to show them that. That is so clear. I mean, you've got to do it. So let me tell you, I love the fact that you said, so that's as clear as I can make it at the moment without fleshing it out on paper or any of those other things. Let me tell you something. To this day, Joshua, I have never written a business plan. I still to this day, I've built Podcast Answer Man over a decade. I sold almost $1 million in podcast equipment, built it over to a $500,000 a year business. You know, the stuff that I've been able to achieve, shut it all down, doing all this other stuff. To this day, I still have never written out a business plan. By the way, I have a life plan, but I still don't have a business plan. And that's okay. Let me tell you something. You fleshed out everything that needs to be fleshed out. And I'm going to just tell you, act. Have faith, act, start filming, publish, and just do it for the sole purpose of showing people that life is an adventure. That's it. That's all you need. You have everything. You said you've got lots of dreams and aspirations, but the big picture dream/vision on the forefront of your mind is that. So go for it. Don't wait till you get confirmation, clarity that it's the right thing. No, just go for it. If things change down the road, you change with it. All right. You said here that you've got 2 people that you've been prayerfully considering reaching out to, not knowing what will happen. Well, I guarantee you, I know that you did not expect that you'd be hearing an entire podcast episode of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show when you first decided to take action on what I shared in episode 617 of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show, an invitation to reach out to me on Voxer. You had no idea what would happen, but guess what? You had the courage to ask, and then all of a sudden, this episode's being produced fully for you. And you and I have a 90-minute coaching experience in the first week of February. I want to encourage everyone listening to this podcast. You never know what's going to happen when you prayerfully consider reaching out to someone. You might get a no, but I guarantee you if you don't ask, you will not get a yes. I refer you back to the audio clip from Steve Jobs earlier in this podcast episode. Most people don't get those experiences in life because they never ask. Joshua, thank you for reaching out to me on Voxer. Thank you for sharing the dream that you have that excites you and scares you the most. And more than anything, thank you for having a heart to inspire and encourage other people to get off their butts and start living the adventurous life. I know it's what you're meant to do next, and I encourage you to do it. And I can't wait to see that first piece of content in 2020 if you've already created some content before. But your first piece of content in 2020, I can't wait to see it on YouTube, and I look forward to talking to you soon. And for everyone else listening to this podcast, thank you so much for tuning in to the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. And until next time, I encourage you to take everything you do, including the way that you're willing to reach out and have the courage to ask others, to the next level.
Mindset Answer Man.